Hey everyone, exciting show for you today. It's our expert series. It's Wednesday, and of course, you know that means Anna Kelly. How you doing this morning, Anna?
I'm great, Michael. How are you today?
I'm doing really, really good. I saw in your Facebook posts that you have line of sight to a beach rental, which is pretty cool because I think it was just last week you were talking about you were just going to go hunting. So why don't we start there? What'd you find? Where is it? What kind of killer smoking deal did Anna find?
So, I went to my beach house. I have a second home beach house right now in Ocean City, Maryland, in a little resort we absolutely love. It's a gated community, high end. And the great thing about it is my rentals from the summer cover all my expenses and I still profit and get to enjoy it, a week and a half out of the summer, sometimes two, plus all of the spring and fall and winter,
Oh wow.
indoor pools, etc. So it's amazing. But as my family grows, I keep thinking, oh, it'd be nice to eventually one day have a bigger one. So
Okay.
I stayed in a big house, a 6-bedroom house in the same resort that's a single family house where I have a townhouse. And I always thought, oh, one day I'd love to own one of these, but they're $1 million properties. So I'm not one to go out and buy luxury items unless they make me money. I'm not just going to go buy something just to enjoy it because I could do something else with the money. So I've got to get a really, really good deal, to buy something that's a luxury item like a beach house.
Okay.
So when I went down to look at beach houses, I called my realtor and I said, I've been eyeing a 2 to 3 bedroom on the sand ocean side for 3 years, but I'm patient, Michael, and I'm not
Yes.
going to buy one unless I get a really, really, really good deal on it. So my realtors kept an eye out for me. And over the time since I bought my first one, I bought a second one, but it wasn't on the sand, but really close, and got a great deal on that. So he called me over. He said, I got something for you. And he had me meet him in this big single that, I've liked for a long time. And I was like, oh, this is a really nice one. Well, he said, here's the deal. A sale fell through. There was a 1031 exchange from a guy in New York City who had New York City property that he was selling and going to 1031. And based on COVID and everything happening, that sale didn't go through, so he couldn't 1031. So it wasn't, he had just put it back on the market. And, the seller wants to sell. So I negotiated a deal, a really good deal off the price, 125,000 off the price on $1 million property, and the price had already been dropped.
Wow.
So still high dollar property, but this is a property that I could buy for about 7.25.
Okay.
That'll bring in about $80,000 during a summer. So it's not what you would call a killer investment property if you're just looking for cash flow. But if you're looking for an investment property that really you're buying for the benefits of owning it, like, family enjoyment for 30 years, someone else paying down the mortgage, property appreciation, it's a good thing to add to your portfolio. So normally I wouldn't buy something that expensive or that didn't cash flow a ton, but I'm really looking at it for my own family as we grow. So the thought is, let's get in this thing if we can swing it, if we can figure out how to take it down financing wise, and then we'll just take the one we live in now or we have as our second home and just rent it out a lot more often. Then we have 2 in the same community, and if one is rented and we want to go, we'll have 2 options. So it wasn't something I was looking for. I was looking for something much cheaper on the sand that I could cash flow a ton and not use very much. But it was too good of a deal for me to pass up. So I put it under contract, and now I'm working on the hard part, which is getting it financed.
Very, very cool. A couple questions about the seller. Was this primary residence for him or her? If you don't know, it's
No,
cool. I'm just curious.
second home, and
Okay.
they've never rented it out. They've just enjoyed it.
Oh, wow. So again,
So it's
second
in
home.
great condition.
Oh, it's in great. And how long have they owned it? Do you know?
They bought it in 2007, had it built brand new, paid about
Oh,
$1 million for it.
wow. So 2007, I don't know where that was in the cycle. That's probably really close to the last
Right.
peak.
It was the peak height of the market for
Okay.
sure.
So let's see. So they buy it at the peak. They spend $1 million. They hold it for 13 years. Where does this property go during the worst of the market? Does it go all the way down to 500 or 600 during like 10 or no?
No. And in fact, in the last recession, it was about the same as where it is now. So
Oh,
the
okay.
property values, and actually, I'm sorry, about the same as where I'm buying it now,
Ah,
but the property values now are still, $900,000 range.
okay.
I'm just getting a really good deal on it.
Yeah.
So part of the reason for that is because it hasn't been rented. All that makes it in better condition. It doesn't have the history of rental income that banks like to see when investors are buying it. So I can go to the bank and say, listen, this one hasn't been rented, but the two on either side of it, here's what they do consistently every season. It's the same house right next door, same floor plan, etc. So it makes it a little challenging for financing, but it's in better condition than one would be, if it was a rental. But interestingly enough, and I started talking to my realtor about this about a year and a half ago, Michael, as I've told you, I thought we were going to head toward a recession eventually.
Yep.
And I said, I want to know before I buy any more here, what happens in a recession. So looking at 2008, 2009, 2010, what they could see is that even though property values went down, the rental income on those properties went up significantly. And they were quite surprised by that. But what they found was the trend that during a recession, people will not fly and take real expensive vacations. They won't drive too far, but they will drive 3 to 5 hours to go to the beach and have a whole family share a house, cut down on the expense that they would have in hotels elsewhere, be able to cook a few meals at home, and do a nice vacation cheaper by just doing it at the beach. So rental income actually goes up during a recession for these types of properties that are very, very nice and a little more high end than your standard 2-bedroom condo that everybody on the beach has.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is this like the 6-bedroom that you stayed in one time? Is it really a big house?
It's nice. It's really big. It's 6-bedroom, 4.5 bath,
Wow.
huge dining room, huge kitchen, double living room. It's got 4 porches, 3 of which look right at the bay. So it's in Ocean City, Maryland at a beach, but Ocean City's like a strip. It's like a long peninsula. So the bay side is calmer. You've got more expensive big houses on the bay. And we've got private beaches there that are about 10 degrees warmer than the ocean side. So I can walk to the ocean in 5 minutes, but I can have the privacy and the exclusivity of having the bayside, bigger home. So it overlooks the bay. So that's the draw to this one for me.
Wow, very exciting. And again, you're walking distance, don't have to cross the street, no busy cars, anything, get to the water.
Right. And the nice thing is there's private beaches where they've got people that are waitresses and waiters that come serve you food and drink on the beach. There's an indoor pool. There's an outdoor pool. There's a
Oh,
spa, a sauna,
spoiled.
gym. It gets better, Michael. There's a
Oh.
private restaurant and they do like luau's at night at sunset. There's a private little store where they sell donuts and make sandwiches and Starbucks. And so you really never have to leave the resort to even go over to the boardwalk or the beach if you don't want to. And it's gated with security. There's a crab and fishing dock. So I feel safe with my kids riding their bikes and, going to the pier and without all the hustle and bustle of not knowing who's partying in the 2-bedroom condo next door. So it's a really, really nice community and one that we'd want to have a house in for the long term.
Wow, I'm excited for you. Okay, so now you lock it up. You get the on a discount, right, which is already off of a discount. You found the right opportunity, 1031 exchanges. The person who was selling was probably counting on the money for something, right? And that blew up. Now he's ready to deal. You've locked it up. Now you have to finance it. I guess you have a couple of options, right? You could do second home, which has its ups and downs, meaning more down payment, but probably a better interest rate. Or you go, kind of the investment house. And I mean, how's that all play out?
So this is what I posted about today on Facebook, and a little bit about what we've talked about the last several weeks is that although there's going to be great opportunities coming on the market, and I believe so in the vacation rental space especially, the lending is going to tighten up, and the lending and getting the deal done is the hardest part when you're dealing with an economy like it is today and all the things we're seeing. Lenders react quickly and then they hold off a little bit. They still want to get some deals done, and then they get even tighter a few months down the road. And I'm already seeing it with the beach house. So I've done 2 of these deals, both which had tremendous hurdles to get through to get them financed, because like any other loan that you go to get. If you want to buy it as a second home and you want the benefit of that 30-year low rate fixed interest rate locked in, then you have to check the agency boxes. You know, they have an underwriting guideline, Fannie Mae, that says you can't own more than 10 properties in your name. Well, some of them have overlays. You can't own more than 4 properties in your name. So for an investor like me, you know, it's already, well, I would have done it last year. We did it for you before, but now our new overlay is no more than 4 properties.
Right.
Because they view real estate investors as risky when you're in a market where there's rent controls and forbearances and talk of rent relief and no evictions. So the reality is, even though I've got a lot of cash flow coming in from my investments, to a Fannie Mae lender that's wanting me to check the boxes, they say, wait, what if she doesn't get paid on any of these apartments for a long time? And it ups their view of the risk of doing the deal for me. So if you want to buy it and do it well on a big beach house like this that you're going to enjoy, you really want to get in with as little down money as you possibly can, because that increases your profitability and allows you to use it a lot more. Even if you don't have some rental weeks covered, you're going to at least break even if you pay right and you finance with long-term financing and don't have to put much down. So my entire reason for going after this is because there's second home financing where you can get 90% financing, 10% down, locked in for 30 years at about 3.25%. The challenge for me is not only do I own too many properties in the mind of, you know, Fannie Mae, but a property this size is in jumbo loan territory. So the jumbo loan, basically a conventional loan goes up to a certain dollar amount. And a couple years ago, it was like $496. And now it's, I think, just over $515, $520, somewhere in that range. So what that does, Michael, and I didn't realize this till yesterday because the lenders I talked to before I put it under contract didn't tell me this, was the jumbo limit is going to keep me from being able to finance any more than 70% LTV on a first. So they tell you 90% LTV, but because it's jumbo, it's 70%. So then we have to get creative and say, well, how do we fund the other 20% so I only have to put 10% down?
Right.
What's interesting is when you're buying it as a second home, they'll allow you to borrow another 20% and go all the way up to 90% LTV all in. But then you've got to, you know, get approved for a home equity line of credit that closes at the same time, or a home equity loan. And that second lender has their own overlays, and one of which is the number of finance properties. So that's my first hurdle. The second, you know, so then I have to go back and say, okay, if I can't get in like this, I can go back to the seller and ask him to hold paper. But I've already hammered him on price. So he's not going to be likely to say, sure, I'll hold 20% for you. And you've hammered me on price, you're taking my summer rental income, and then I'm going to, you know, do a second. But I'm going to try, and we'll see if I can come up with a price point that still makes worth it to me and get the max financing. Because if that doesn't work, and I can't find this program that lets me in as an owner-occupied second mortgage for 90% LTV, I have to switch gears and buy it as an investment property. That has a whole other slew of issues. And so the biggest one is, right now, with the new CARES Act, you know, the new post-COVID rules that the agencies are putting into place, they don't want you to finance a beach house as an investment property for any less than 75% LTV, all in, including any second mortgages, seller financing, etc. So you truly have to have at least 25% down on an investment property right now in a beach and type of environment, which means, you know, I'd have to put down, you know, $200,000 to $300,000 on a property. It's really essentially, you know, a third of what it's worth. And then my ROI just goes in the tank. It makes it really not worth it, especially, Michael, when I say I can take $200,000 to $300,000 and buy another $1.5 to $3 million worth of rental property, make thousands of dollars a month, and just use that money to vacation anywhere I want all summer long, instead of having another beach house, you know? So these are the kind of things that I think of as an investor. And sometimes you don't know until you go in. I mean, I had 95% of this figured out because I've done it twice before recently, but the changing in lending terms throws wrenches in things, and you got to get creative and malleable and figure out Can I get it done in a way that makes sense for me? And
Yeah.
if I can't get it done in the way that makes sense as an investment, at what point do I walk away?
Yeah. Well, let me throw this wild and crazy idea out there. You may have thought about it already, but um, do you have another investment property that I've always thought about or maybe thinking about selling? And then maybe you could do is check the box of 1031 exchange and then treat the beach house as a like kind exchange. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, you know what's interesting is I just sold a couple,
I
and when I
remember.
sold them, I couldn't find anything to 1031 into that I was excited about. You know, I
Right.
could have found something to 1031, but I'm not going to 1031 just to save tax money into something that's not a great investment otherwise. So there was
Totally agree.
nothing on the market at the time. I just sold these things, and I just closed on one a couple months ago and one a week and a half or 2 weeks ago.
I remember.
But I've already taken possession of the cash, and so once you've taken the cash at settlement, you can't 1031.
Hmm.
I also had a fire burned building, and so I've got money that I can spend there. And in fact, if I don't use the insurance proceeds to buy something else in the next year, I'd have to pay capital gains tax on all of that. So that's a possibility. But then I just really have to think, man, for 250 to $300,000 down, I could make a lot of money by putting that money somewhere else. And I really don't need another beach house. If I can get it and I can get this deal done the way I want to, great. I'd love it and I'll do it. But it's a big opportunity cost if you can't 1031 into something.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is you're comfortable putting $70,000 to $80,000 in cash to work. That's what I hear you saying. And then you're
Right.
like,
Plus closing costs.
yeah.
And I negotiated some closing costs. So I'd be in at about $90,000 on a
Okay.
$900,000 property. And I'd make, $80,000 a summer, maybe 90 on a good year if I can rent some shoulders and enjoy the property, have someone else pay down the mortgage and make a pretty good return on my 90
Well,
grand.
let's be clear for the folks watching that just heard you say that and flipped out. 90,000 in income is gross, not net for the summer.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So you're still putting, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 kind of net.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. So that's what I hear you saying.
So a house like this is not in my cash flow bucket.
Mhm.
When I'm looking for properties that are going to create a great deal of cash flow, I want a small, $300,000 condo that has 2 to 3 bedrooms that's
Yep.
going to rent, $30,000, $40,000 a summer. And that's going to cash flow like crazy if I buy it right. When
Mhm.
you buy something like this, it's kind of a luxury home. You're really buying it for enjoyment, for the appreciation, for the mortgage pay down, for the equity.
Yeah.
And the cash flow is like another nice benefit that helps pay for itself. But most of the return is in the deal you get up front in the equity, the appreciation over the time, and the cash, the forced appreciation to some extent, mortgage pay down and depreciation for the taxes.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of in a spot where really the only kind of acceptable answer is the seller needs to take back a 20% of the purchase price for a second. It kind of feels that like that's where you're at, kind of.
Either that, or I go private mortgage, which I'm
Ooh.
already turning those,
Yep.
those wheels and talking to some people about that on a second.
Okay.
Or we get
Oh,
the
that's
bank
true.
to
Yeah.
figure out another way to do it. So the first beach house I did, I got a 90% loan and I did a private 10% deal for the second. So I got in with no money down and I had to pay the guy off in 5 years, which was a great deal. So I had 5 years to come up with the cash and I just put my rental income toward that. So there's lots of different ways to do it. Seller financing would probably be, one of the 3 options I'm exploring right now. But for me, bottom line is if I can't get in with 10% down, I'm probably not doing the deal.
Even though you got I don't know, call it a 20% discount to value.
Right.
See?
And again, I'm not sure yet. I've got to think about that. But it's very hard for me as an investor to part with cash that I could put somewhere else and make a lot more money. You've got to really, really want the second home in order to do that. So,
yeah. Again, this is what smart investors do or experienced investors do. They conserve their cash. That's where we are in this environment. If you were looking at this deal in like 2019, you'd have just done the deal, right? It was a different environment.
Yes. And the thing is, in 2019, my lending would have been easier too.
Exactly.
So when we put the deal together, I had already talked to two banks before I wrote the offer, and they said, absolutely no problem. We can get you 90%. We'll do this and this. And then they're like, oh, I forgot that you told me you have a bunch of property. And that's the hiccup right now, is that I own too much property for the provider of the second mortgage/home equity line to be within their guidelines of their overlays. And so that piece, that 20%, is a big piece that may be off the table, that was on the table when I wrote the offer. So, again, I'm not one to give up. And this is just another one of those things. It's a challenge, and you got to get creative and burn down every option until you find one that works. But if it doesn't work quick enough, that the seller needs to have me be fair to him too, and not tie it up if I can't do it, then, I have to be able to say, I can walk away. I've learned never, ever to fall in love with a property until that deal is done. You buy a property as a tool for meeting your investment goals. And in a situation like this, it also has some fringe benefits by being able to use it. But I've just learned, you find a deal, you find the opportunity, you try to pull together all the pieces that make it really an amazing investment. And if those things don't come together, then you've got to be able to walk away. So I'm still positive, and I think that I'm going to be able to figure this thing out and get it done. Mm-hmm. But if it comes down to I just can't because of the lending environment that we're in, then I have to make the decision: do I go ahead and part with the cash because it's still an amazing investment, and then refi the equity back out later, which is another option.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I'm, history's, probably a year to 18 months away from being able to refi out. Probably this summer, next summer's income proving that it's a good unit. It's probably
and that's a really important point that I hope your investors listen to if they start to think about a beach house, especially as opportunity starts to hit the market, and a lot of them are. Is that if you buy it as an investment property and it already has income coming in, that will look much better on your credit when you want to go buy more property. But if you buy it as a second home, it's on your personal credit. It's in your name. And your debt to income ratio, in order to qualify, you can't use the income it will generate to qualify for the mortgage. So the bank wants to know that even if we have another COVID, and you never rent it out, you can still cover that mortgage payment without that extra income. So that's the other hurdle as a second home, is that. But even if you get the loan, you have to realize that your debt to income ratio is going to be in the toilet for 2 years. Because any other property that you want to buy, an investment property, they're going to go, we want 2 years of tax returns showing that this beach house is making that income. And until then, it could hurt you from buying things in the future. So I'm very cognizant of that. And when I bought my first beach home, it's what caused my local lender to tap me out and say, because you bought this beach house, we now consider you too risky. Even though you've built this portfolio, you got to wait till you can show a summer's income, at least 1 year tax return, before we'll lend to you again. So it caused me trouble financing after I did the first one, and it could cause more trouble with the second one. So you've got to think about all of those things before you decide to pull a trigger on an investment like this one.
Yeah. And that's probably that would be my biggest, yellow flag is, right, if I really do believe there's amazing deals coming down the pipeline, do I want to hamstring myself by adding this beautiful house that I've always wanted now, right? It's just now the wrong time, because it is. Lenders can say no to the best qualified folks. I lived through it before, and it happens when they get ultra strict. Again, sometimes real estate investors are bad, right? Just sometimes we're risky.
Right. Yeah. And what's interesting is even if I bought it as an investment property, it'll be in LLC names if it's in the investment property, so it's not in your credit. So going with a bigger lender, it may not hurt you as much if it's in an LLC. But with a smaller lender, they're looking at your entire portfolio, whether you own it in your name or an LLC anyway. So it really doesn't give you that much of a benefit to have it in the LLC. It's still going to hurt your debt to income ratio for a while. So,
for sure.
All those things are things that I'm thinking through. But, I think if you can find an amazing opportunity like this one, you can find a way to get it done. And you just have to say, once I go through all the hurdles, do I still want it badly enough? Right. And does it really make sense? Do I understand all the risks and rewards of the deal? And for me, I know what the risks are. I know what the rewards are. And if I can get it done on my terms, it'll be worth it. And if I can't, then I walk away and I, wait for another opportunity. And
Yeah.
I go buy some more property that makes me more cash so that I look less risky for the next one.
There you go. There you go. So you obviously have an internal clock where you feel like you owe the seller a response if you can get it done or not. I'm curious, is that 7 days, 5 days, 10 days? Where are you in that, trying to put this together?
If I can't find a lender that says yes in the next 2 days, probably by Friday, I go to the seller and ask for a second and give them the option to do that. And if not, then I walk away out of respect for them to let them put it back on the market.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. So you will be in contract a week, less than a week, start to finish,
Right.
if you had to walk away.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's the right thing to do. This seller has already been through one transaction that didn't work out. You got to appreciate their side of the equation as well. So
right. Or I decide I'm going to go ahead and put the cash in, and because there's another factor is my family. My husband really, really, really wants us to buy this house.
Oh, you're in trouble now.
My kids really, really, really want me to buy this house. And it would be amazing because it's 3 hours away. So we can drive there anytime, almost 4 hours away. But to take a lot of family and be able to bless others and have events. And so, there's personal reasons to do a deal that may not be the ideal investment, but that is a good hybrid between what you want personally and be able to have it as an investment to help cover some of those dreams and cover some of the expenses. So, these things don't often make sense purely as an investment once they're over a certain side. So you've got to just create that balance. So we may still move forward and put a big chunk down. So I really don't know. So stay tuned and we'll talk more about it next week.
Yeah. So this is just my prediction. So first off, I think there's a very good chance you find somebody that'll step in for the second, either a private lender, a bank, or the seller. I think there's a better than 80% chance one of those says yes, and you'll know in the next 3 or 4 days.
Right.
Even if that doesn't happen, I guess I'll just say there's a 99% chance you buy this property, right? You have that family side, because I can already hear your kids saying, I want to have my wedding there, or, they can just start planting these bigger things that you as a mom are going to internalize and want forever. Because you're going to own this for the next 30 to 50 years easily, right? So it's a family compound is what I keep hearing you say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you very much for doing this. I always appreciate it, and look forward to next week.
Thanks so much, Michael.
You got it.